The second thing about this, not just humility, that's really an approach. But if we're going to make peace, you have to attack the problem only. You don't attack other people. If you want a better lesson on that, go to last week and read Matthew 5, starting at verse 21, and you'll see Jesus' thoughts on that. We don't attack people, we attack the problem in peacemaking. Peacemaking, it turns out, is not about wins and losses. It's not about just putting another thing in the W category, and I won against you. Now, peacemaking and peacekeeping, there's a lot of stuff in marriage resources on this. If you've been married, you can see the application immediately on some of this stuff. One of the books I use for premarital counseling by Burns and Fields notes in conflict, for a marriage to be healthy, the real enemy needs to be the problem, not one another. But how often do we make it one another in our relationships? You did this, rather than this is the problem. Right? That changes things when all of a sudden you're looking at what the issue is to be dealt with, rather than the person. Because it's not about wins and losses. Like I said, if one person wins, you both lose. That's how it works in peacemaking. If one wins, you both lose. It's not about being right, it's about doing right. Why? Because it's about the kingdom of heaven. Not about my wins versus my losses against another. We attack the problem only in peacemaking. Now, the past matters when you're dealing with peacemaking, especially when you have to reconcile with others, to figure things out on how to move forward. And you have to work through certain past experiences, but you can't use that as sort of a weapon of offense or defense. Often that happens. People will hold grudges for a long time, and then we keep the peace, and that's it. Keeping grudges is not a spiritual gift. Forgiveness is. Forgiveness is something we're given as a gift. Peacekeeping produces lives, or peacekeeping lives, I should say, produce shallow and unsatisfying relationships, when that's the way we do things everywhere. Like we saw on that list, we can't really ever speak the truth fully. We can't really ever say how we feel. We're always trying to apologize for something we didn't do. It doesn't produce real relationships that are satisfying and of any depth at all, because we're always covering for something we know was there that we need to deal with. And when you have those situations where you need to reconcile and make peace, we can't simply allow past hurts or hurt to continue. That's not what I'm saying at all. We also can't allow peace to be elusive. Somehow there has to be a line between those. How do we deal with past and past hurts and making peace that's going to deal with what was there in the past and yet not continue to get hurt and allow those patterns to happen? To have real relationships of depth that are satisfying. Peacekeeping churches, and I know I piqued some of your interest last week when I pointed out that I've lived with you long enough that peacekeeping is our spiritual gift. It's one of them. But that's not the one that's blessed. Peacekeeping is one of our spiritual gifts. Peacekeeping churches tend to breed false community, as it turns out. They also tend to breed passive-aggressive behavior. Those two things. So when peacekeeping becomes the norm, when that's how we do it, we have the appearance of getting along, but we need to actually get real. We haven't gotten along. It's not a real thing. There might be real relationships, but by and large, there's still something under the surface. Leaders and visionaries tend to leave over time in peacekeeping churches because change is a no-no. Manipulation and dissatisfaction tend to rule the day in peacekeeping churches. Dissatisfaction because people act happier than they are about things. And manipulation because, well, change is often a no-no, so we go through different channels to look nice and act nice, but kind of manipulate the system. And communication does not truly exist. Not in a real way. That's when peacekeeping is made the norm. See, we have to use truth in all of this. Truth is necessary for peacemaking. We have to get to the truth. Truth wisely used, I want to point out. Misuse of truth is just as grievous as a lie, honestly. It moves into a bad territory. I heard a story recently of a pastor who does the weekly rumor roundup. That's dangerous. He takes whatever gossip was going on that week, and he gets up before the congregation every week. I don't know what church it was, but I know this is a true story. He gets up and he says, here's the weekly rumor roundup. And he gives a real rumor that week to stop that practice from happening. So one example, and I'm going to embellish it a little bit from his. But he says, okay, the rumor this week is that the church secretary arrives late, leaves early, doesn't do much but gossip during the day and talk on the phone and play solitaire on the computer, and she turns in her full amount of hours to get paid. That's the rumor. Let me tell you the truth, the pastor says. She comes early, she stays late, she only turns in hours, she often works from home, she's very dedicated to the job. Tune in next week for the next weekly rumor roundup. And there you go. Now that'll stop the rumors, won't it? And you can see where something like this comes up. Somebody sees the secretary leave early one day and they think, well, that must be the case every day. And so they start putting together pieces that aren't necessarily there. Half-truths, as it turns out. They're misusing what little they know to spin a bigger story. Half-truths, Marshall Shelley says, are like half-bricks are more dangerous because they fly farther. We have to be careful how we use the truth. Paul attacks this and the purpose of using the truth appropriately in Ephesians 4. We heard, he says, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. What's the point of the truth? It's so that we would grow together, reconciled, whole people in Jesus Christ. That's how you make peace. That's how you reconcile things. You use the truth appropriately, not poorly. We use it wisely. And you always ask, to what end am I using the truth? What's going to be the result of what I know, and is it my information to share? If reconciliation and wholeness and peacemaking is what we're using it for, and that's appropriate, good. Used wisely, that's the right way to go.